federal error, conservatives say. This is written by Kate McKenna of the CBC. So we're going to go through this a little bit here, and I'm going to talk about it. The conservatives are decrying a push by the federal liberals to retroactively amend a law, which some lawyers believe is a way to avoid paying out veterans over a federal error that may be responsible for overcharging them thousands of dollars. Now, those of us who live in Canada will know that the budget just came out recently, and in the budget, they talk about a plethora of different things. This is the thing that I get really frustrated about politics, is it's not just a budget. It's not just them outlining what they're going to do for the fiscal years ahead. They hide and bury a bunch of things in these massive documents. Later on in this, it actually says somewhere on the page 375 is where they hide this amendment to retroactively protect the government from liability over something that cost veterans thousands of dollars. The Carney government's Budget Implementation Act contains an amendment that says it clarifies the formula used to calculate long-term care cost for veterans. Lawyers in a proposed class action contend the federal government has been overcharging veterans for long-term care due to a decades-long miscalculation. A decades-long miscalculation. And instead of owning up to that, instead of giving veterans what they deserve and what they have earned, there's the thing about this. The government doesn't just give veterans things. We have earned these things. These are things that veterans have gone and paid the ultimate sacrifice for, both with their lives and in many cases their bodies and mental health and well-being. But a decades-long miscalculation, they're still using it to find a loophole so they don't have to pay those veterans for their own miscalculation. So this is where things get really frustrating when you read stuff like this. The amendment, if passed, would be retroactive and potentially spell the end of litigation intended to reimburse affected veterans and their families. Because if they're able to amend this and retroactively fix it, well, then they don't owe families and veterans anything, right? For your own miscalculations, oopsie, but also we're not paying you. However, we will pay a bunch of money overseas for things that we think support our party lines. It boggles my brain. There's a quote here from Blake Richards. He's a conservative Veterans Affairs critic. It says, "I think what it really boils down to is the government made a mistake. They should have acknowledged that they made a mistake instead of sneakily putting something buried on page 375 in the Budget Implementation Act," says conservative Veterans Affairs critic Blake Richards. In October 2024, CBC News reported that the federal government likely made an error interpreting its own law. Sources with ties to the department had said that the issue was known internally and was never addressed. So they knew about it. There is parties within the party that knew about it, and they just never addressed it. And now they have the authority and the what they feel is moral rights to go in and amend it so that those who are directly impacted by it, the voter base and veterans, the people that uphold and defend the sovereign rights of Canada, they don't need to be compensated for errors and mistakes that the government makes. The government, they design rules for thee, not rules for me. And that is, it's infuriating. And living as a veteran, I live on a fixed income, and this here doesn't directly impact me. This doesn't directly affect me. This is in a class action lawsuit from different veterans for different things. But the principle of the matter is that Canada has an obligation to care for its veterans. Veterans, they sign up willfully. Post Korean War, military members have signed up as a largely volunteer force. That's why we don't have mandatory military service or civil service. We have a largely volunteer force, and we still have a volunteer force. It's getting to the point now where, decades of mistreatment, stuff like this, has led to an erosion of our forces. People are leaving en masse. There were reports that new soldiers were living in mod tents because, when you're a brand new soldier, you don't make a ton of money. You can't really live off base, but the bases were so full of other soldiers living on base that there was nowhere to accommodate these people, so they were living in mod tents.
The National Defense is not managing their housing in a way that will meet their needs or the needs of their members at all. I think what was concerning for me is that we saw the poor condition of so many housing units that I think you and I would not want to live in, and we shouldn't expect that our Canadian Armed Forces members
I think they said they were 60, some of them an average of 60 years old.
Some of the quarters, so there's two types of buildings.
Okay.
There are quarters which are meant for basic training and temporary housing or transigent housing. They're not supposed to be long-term. Some people are living in those long-term. Then there are residential units, so a house that's unfurnished. And some of the quarters are over 60 years old. One was built actually in 1930. And when maintenance isn't being done, because we saw that in about 25% of the cases, regular inspections aren't being done, you don't know the needs for maintenance, and then that results in housing that's in poor condition. And as you mentioned, we saw lack of safe water to drink or potable water in buildings, toilets that didn't flush, and exterior walls that needed repairs.
And do we have a number on how many?
It's crazy that that's the case. It's also crazy that the government, who every November comes out and talks about how much they support veterans, and how much they care about veterans, and how much they care about us and support us, and how we must remember lest we forget that the government has a history of mistreating and misrepresenting veterans. Indigenous veterans post World Wars I and II were historically treated as lesser than. They had to fight for their benefits, and even then they would get percentages of those benefits, and they would also have to jump through other loopholes, such as signing away their status in order to receive benefits. And then when it comes to modern day Afghanistan veterans, there was a gentleman who confronted Justin Trudeau, former prime minister, and he asked him why soldiers and why veterans are having to fight the government in court for simple benefits and things that they're entitled to. And Justin Trudeau famously said, "You're just asking for more than we can give right now."
He made the promise, and I'll quote it here, "No veteran will be forced to fight their own government for the support and compensation they have earned." Yet you are still currently in a legal battle with veterans regarding equal support and compensation to their peers. You have ISIL or ISIS members coming into a reintegration program. You did a backdoor deal with Omar Khadr with not even stepping into the courtroom. So again, my question is, what veterans were you talking about? Was it the ones that fought for the freedoms and values that you so proudly boast about, or was it the ones who fought against? Because honestly, Mr. Prime Minister, I was prepared to be injured in the line of duty when I joined the military. Nobody forced me to join the military. I was prepared to be killed in action. What I wasn't prepared for, Mr. Prime Minister, is Canada turning its back on me. So which veteran was it that you were talking about?
Why are we still fighting against certain veterans groups in court? Because they're asking for more than we are able to give right now. They are asking for more than we... Well, no, hang on. You're asking for honest answers. The old Veterans Charter involved lump sum payments and very little in the way of services. We have significantly invested in services, rehabilitation, support, investments in training, in support for caregivers and families that have gone a long way towards improving the quality of life and outcomes for veterans. And we cannot return to the amount of money that was given before without accounting for the money invested in services for veterans. And what I know from veterans I've spoken...
Asking for more than we can give right now. No, they're not asking for you to give them something. They're not asking for handouts. They're asking for what is earned. They have earned this. This is already prepaid. This is a prepaid thing, and it should not be buried in politics and tape and stupid stuff like this, where the government knows they made a mistake, and then instead of owning up to that mistake, they sit there and they bury it so they don't have to pay back. But if you make a mistake on your taxes, oh, no, you don't get to make an amendment. No, you must pay immediately. This is where the frustration with government comes in, because the government seems to represent their parties now as opposed to representing Canadians' best interests. And that infuriates me because, unfortunately, I live within that umbrella. Anyway, that's my rant. It's done. It's over. I'm going to go make a tea and have a much better day, because I'm going to go watch something, maybe Beavis and Butthead or something. Yeah, I'm a grown man in his 40s that watches Beavis and Butthead. What are you going to do? Maybe I shouldn't be talking about politics. Maybe I just invalidated everything that I talked to you about by that admittance. Anyway, see you guys in the next episode of 100 Chapters, the podcast.